Thank you, everybody, for coming back to the Riggs Beast channel. As always, let's go beast on that subscribe button. Let's go beast on that like button. And let's go beast on this SmackDown Live review, which came to you from good old Louisville, Kentucky. Now, before we get into anything, I do like that WWE opened the show with a memoriam to Matt Inoue. If you don't know, that is Roman Reigns' brother, was in the WWE as Rousey. Also did 3-minute warning when Eric Bischoff was in the company. Rest in power, Matt Inoue. Now, in terms of SmackDown Live, I want to get a few things out of the way. I'm also going to save the six-pack challenge, which determined the number one contender for the WWE Championship, till last. And quite frankly, that's probably going to be a majority of this review, is the decision that was made in that match. So if we skip around a little bit, I apologize, but you'll know why. So they're going to actually open SmackDown. Charlotte's going to come out. She does, honestly, her robotic opening. I don't like Charlotte on the mic that much. Sometimes she comes off very good, very passionate. When she doesn't feel the lines, you could tell she doesn't feel the lines. And you could tell she didn't feel these lines. It came off robotic. But she does say 7 days she's been on SmackDown Live and she's impatient because she hasn't been granted a title shot. Naomi's going to come out. Says she's been watching Charlotte for a long time, knows what she's about, but it's sad that she's begging like this. Naomi says she's never scared and jumps Charlotte. Shane McMahon comes out. Says you have to earn opportunities on SmackDown Live, the theme of SmackDown Live in general, and books a match between Naomi and Charlotte. If Charlotte beats Naomi, she'll get a title match next week on SmackDown. Charlotte then jumps Naomi, holds up the title. Naomi then jumps Charlotte again. This was a solid open. I give this credit. It built towards the night. You kind of knew who was going to win this match to give you build to next week. They add a layer onto this. This was a very solid opening. Nothing that's going to light the world on fire, but solid. Next, Natty is complaining to Shane in the back about Charlotte having opportunities right when she comes in, not earning them, quote unquote. In comes Carmella. Ellsworth starts talking, and honestly, when he starts talking in this gimmick, I'm done. I shut down. Then in comes Tamina. At least they're using her. I give that credit. She's talented in the ring. If you remember, it's been a long time since you've seen her, but she's talented. Natty says she has her own plan, and they all walk off. Next was that six-pack challenge. We're saving that. After that, though, there's a New Day vignette that hits. Disappointing, and the tag team division is going to suffer until Kofi's ankle heals. It's just that simple. Nakamura vignette plays next. I've said this a few times, so I'm going to be brief with it. I'm not going to hit this topic 10,000 times. Nakamura is already a big star. He will be made bigger once he's there and once people all across this country see him on a mainstream environment. But he doesn't need to be there every week. He really doesn't. And this was a good little week off, give you a vignette. I would do this sporadically with Nakamura. Keep him off. Keep him special. More than Brock in between full time. I like that for him. Then you get an AJ Styles interview. He puts over SmackDown Live being his house and doesn't care who he faces for the U.S. title. Corbin comes in, asks why there's an interview with Styles. It's the setup, Corbin versus Styles for the night. Something to keep the men busy. Next you have Tamina, Natty, and Carmella. They stop Charlotte. Ellsworth says words. Remember, when he speaks, I shut down. I want to say he gets heat in the wrong way. You just don't want to listen to him. He's channel changing right now. There's good heat and there's bad heat. From my point of view, from my perspective with him, he's bad heat. Anyway, though, as Charlotte walks by, Natty gives her the old shoulder nudge. Great. Next, you got Charlotte and Naomi. The match here was actually pretty solid. They keep showing Tamina, Natty, and Carmella, which does take away from it a little bit, but they're trying to add that layer of the Jealous Woman Squad, I'm going to call them. You run with that as you will. So it takes away a little bit from the viewer, but the match is solid, and they're saving some for next week for the title match. So this can be taken away from a little bit. And it's understandable why they would. I do have to say this, though. This Kentucky crowd is your typical non-wrestling town crowd. They are basically dead. They add nothing to the show, and we've talked about it also on this channel, way back to when I made my first video. Crowds are important because they add, the best way to put it is they're the soundtrack to the movie. Without the soundtrack, the movie doesn't have the impact. That's why I do say SmackDown was decent tonight, but you couldn't tell because the crowd wasn't giving you the soundtrack. The end is nice though, back and forth. Both are countering maneuvers. Eventually Charlotte hits the natural selection for the win. Very predictable, but sometimes predictable is fine. Title match next week. Of course, you know the Jealous Women's Squad, which in the next segment, they're waiting for Charlotte, who winks at them and gives them the booze. You know they're going to get involved next week. They're just setting it up. Makes sense. Epico and Primo versus American Alpha. I want to make a note of something real quick. The tag team champion, the Usos, weren't even on the show. Like I stated, until the New Day come in, and even when the New Day come in, this tag division right now is not in good shape at all. They do need to build new stars. And that's going to be an argument for the six-pack challenge. And I do get that for that, and I get that here. They need to build another team right now, at least in the intermediate. How they're going to do that? Gable's being held off by the referee about 3 minutes in. Jordan's going to get kicked in the head, get rolled up by Epico, I believe. The Shining Stars beat American Alpha. I understand why they did it, and I understand trying to make another team look presentable. Here's your issue. They were jobbers 2 weeks ago. Now they're beating your former tag team champions of SmackDown in their first match. It's just not a good look. It's making Raw look superior to SmackDown for the keen eagle eye. If you look at that stuff, it makes Raw look superior. Big theme coming later. Since it was a cheesy win, to be honest, I can't even go any further with it because of how bad the tag division is. You're just not that invested. I don't subscribe to the notion of whining about every little booking decision because you'll be sitting here crying over stuff forever. So this is the one, this is not my hill to die on. So this I'm going to let go. And is it going to come off as hypocritical later? Yes. But this tag division is so bad, you can't sit and cry over every little thing. This one is not my hill to die on. Next, for every horny teenager that watches wrestling, the Lana stripper vignette plays. She looks good. She's taking the place of Eva Marie, except she's a stripper where Eva was, I guess, an actress. I'm not even going into it. That's what they're doing. Quick Ty Dillinger interview. He cues a vignette for himself and says that's why he's the perfect 10. I had two predictions for the open challenge from Kevin Owens. It was either going to be a joke match with a jobber or Ty Dillinger. When they had the Ty Dillinger interview, I had a little hope it was going to be Dillinger, but then realized quickly, Dillinger can't afford a loss. Owens can't afford a loss. You're going to get a jobber. The perfect opponent, as I put on Twitter. It was the jobber. I do want to say this, though, when Kevin Owens comes out now, his Tron and his entrance walkway picture is hilarious of him in the suit with the belt. I think it's great and hilarious. It gives me a laugh every time I see it. He comes in, the announcer starts to announce him, he grabs the mic and says, "Get out of here, you're not good at doing this," announces himself. These are the little nuances why I'm a huge Kevin Owens fan. He then has the local jobber from Louisville, Kentucky, announce himself, beats said jobber, grabs mic again, says as long as he's the U.S. champ, he's the face of America. I do wish this wasn't the angle for most U.S. title champs. I just wish they would not go this route. It does come off lazy sometimes, I'm not going to lie. With a guy like Owens, he will make it work, and he's making this work. But it can come off lazy on occasions. I'm going to give him a pass here simply because Kevin Owens is making it work. But he's going to stay out for commentary for Styles and Corbin. Styles and Corbin is very solid, but it's AJ Styles. What do you expect? Corbin is solid in the ring, plus Styles, which is the best wrestler in the world, that is non-arguable right now. He's better than Omega. He's better than Okada. He's the best. It's going to equal quality every time. Baron Corbin is a main event talent. If he can just put an average promo together, and we've talked about that for a while, we're going to continue to hammer this home. They got to go short, they got to go sweet, and they've got to work with him to get him on a decent level. Put it to you like this. If he even had Roman Reigns' quality mic skills, which have grown to be average, Baron Corbin's a main event star. That's the bar he needs to get to. It is doable. Don't lose faith in him. You knew it was going to happen in this match because Kevin Owens is on commentary. Styles was going to get thrown into Owens somehow. He gets backdropped into him. Styles then catches Corbin leaning against the side barrier with a leaping forearm off the ring apron, knocks him into the crowd. He jumps in the ring, wins by countout, and that's it. That's how SmackDown ended. SmackDown overall, the show, like I said on Raw, they're not pushing towards anything right now. They have a pay-per-view third week in May. So they can slow build things, and they've got to wait for Payback because of Orton and Wyatt, which I still contend that may not be a title match by the time Payback happens. They don't even bring up the implications of Wyatt winning. That's why I continue to say that. Until Orton said about the thorn in his side with the winner of the six-pack challenge, they had not even mentioned anything about implications of Wyatt winning. That's why I contend that. If it's a title match, Orton wins. If it gets taken off of a title match, Bray can actually win. It's that simple. And they have to wait on Owens and Jericho to really get Styles and Owens started. So they're in limbo. But now let's get to this six-pack challenge. Let's do it. It's Steroids Mahal, but for tonight, I'm not even going to make that joke. We're going to call him Jinder Mahal. We're going to call him by the wrestling name. Mojo Rawley, Luke Harper, Eric Rowan, Dolph Ziggler, Sami Zayn. Six-pack challenge, number one contendership for the WWE Championship. Just by the names alone, you know this is a short-term, get me through my next pay-per-view angle. I get that. I think most people are going to get that. For the match itself, if you remember the SmackDown Live women's title match at Mania, it's the same thing here. It's the exact same thing. They also did 2 commercial breaks during the match. I was going to get mad about that, and then I realized all of these names, including Sami Zayn, which is probably the most popular out of all, well, he is the most popular out of all of them, none of them are major names. So they threw in 2 commercial breaks during the match, which, frustrating, is understandable. They did it to themselves, but it's understandable. So the ending of the match, the Bollywood Boys. Now, if you don't know who the Bollywood Boys, they were individually in the Cruiserweight Classic, both lost first round. They were sporadic on NXT, were used as jobbers, essentially just used as enhancement talent, held the legs of Sami Zayn as he was about to go for a haluva kick to beat Jinder Mahal. Jinder Mahal pinned Sami Zayn. Jinder Mahal is your number one contender for the WWE Championship. Randy's going to come out. He says his prize won't be the title, but is going to be an RKO courtesy of him. Then he mentions the other thorn in his side, Bray Wyatt. Says he doesn't know what a House of Horrors match is, but if it's the same as the last house, he will burn it down. Bray comes on, says he wants Randy to feel his pain, while a mirage of Randy burning the house down plays. Says he will never walk out after he's done with him. We mentioned this on Raw. It rings hollow. It rings hollow because the ending of this is absolute. They've killed the angle. I'm not going into it again. So let's get to the result. Here's my reasonings as to why this was an awful decision. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. Why it was an awful decision. Let's start with the obvious. You remember what Jinder Mahal was doing 2 weeks ago on Raw? He was jobbing out. He was a joke. Remember what Jinder Mahal's been doing ever since he came back? Jobbing out. It's similar to the Shining Star situation, but on a grander scale because he just became the number one contender for the WWE Championship. This isn't the Intercontinental belt. This isn't the US belt. This is a heavyweight championship. This is one of their 2 biggest titles in the company. In fact, it is the namesake championship. Again, keep this in mind. What was he doing 2 weeks ago? He was a jobber. He goes from jobber on Raw to number one contender for the WWE Championship on SmackDown. Number one, why this is a bad look. On Raw, he is incapable of winning a match. On SmackDown, he is now a number one contender. Now, is that nitpicking to some degree? Yes and no. To me, I wouldn't call it nitpicking because, again, this is eagle eye, I call it. By comparison, SmackDown looks weak. Yes, AJ wasn't in the match. Yes, Baron Corbin wasn't in the match. No Kevin Owens. I get all that. I get that this was lower mid-card guys And I get that they could be trying something here. And Jinder Mahal is in this picture simply because of buzz on the internet and enough risal from fans due to his physique, due to the steroids joke, that they're going to go with this. But you remember the Job Squad? That's what this is. This is the Job Squad. The Bollywood boys were jobbers. Jinder Mahal, jobber. You cannot be taken seriously, and that doesn't change in a week. You need to build on that. You need to progress and build a character over time to be taken seriously. You cannot go from being beaten in 2 minutes 1 week to now being considered a legitimate threat, somebody to book over the next 4 weeks. I'm minusing a week because of the Bray Wyatt situation. To be built over 4 weeks and be taken as anything of a serious threat for the championship to try to help, number one, bring in subscribers to subscribe to see Backlash and to get behind and build ratings of a weekly television show. It looks like I might as well watch Raw. If you're thinking about it from the casual perspective, I might as well watch Raw, because if this guy can't win on Raw, but he's a number one contender over here, Raw has, by proxy, the better talent. These are the things I think about. Character building, logic, reason. That's issue number one. Issue number two, he was put in this position for the main reason. You can doubt it all you want, but it's the truth. Because he has buzz, because multiple people are making jokes and memes about him being on steroids. And he will get cheap heat for it. Notice already, he's also using the "you Americans don't understand" gimmick. I can speak 2 languages gimmick. Cesaro did this years ago. They're going to build a stable around him. No. What's going to happen with this is he's going to be around the title for a few weeks. He's going to get beat by Randy. He's going to fade back into obscurity. Because once he loses to Orton, what's the point? You want to build somebody, you build them slowly. You build them over time. Even if you're only going to build them to a mid-card champion status, you don't do it like this. It never works. Guys, look at how many people they've tried the hot shot. Even if it was for 6 weeks, it never works. Now, will I give it a chance? Sure. I don't completely dismiss anything because people have surprised me before. But has hot shotting ever worked when a guy was a jobber just a week ago? No. Remember, the swap was Kurt Hawkins for Jinder Mahal. Think about that for a second. That's the issues. That's the reason. You don't just get credible in 4 weeks. It doesn't happen. Even when Owens beat Cena and then had the battles with Cena, even when he lost, you would think he'd be credible. He lost credibility. It took months to rebuild him. Months. Samoa Joe, right now, hasn't lost a match. But because of the way he's positioned in matches and simply being left off Mania, he is not looked at as strong. But now we're going to take a jobber from Raw, move him to SmackDown, hot shot him into a WWE title feud because you want to keep Styles away. You're keeping Owens away. You're keeping Zayn away, and you're not turning Orton heel. You're keeping Nakamura away. So we're going to do this to hot shot it. You can't take it seriously. You just can't. This is why, in my opinion, the guys that should have won were either Luke Harper or Sami Zayn. I would have probably gone Luke Harper. Now, I would turn Randy Orton heel, and if that was the plan, Sami Zayn wins. But if they're not going to turn Orton heel, I would have went Luke Harper. And I would have went Luke Harper because, yes, they just had a match of a quick feud. It was good. The fans were into it. Fans were getting behind Luke. He was held off television because of Mania. Bring him back on. Have him win. He is a guy that had a great match with Orton, had close matches with Wyatt when he was champion, and could at least be looked at as a credible challenger. He's a guy that has mid-card status that could have used this instead of hot-shotting a jobber. and I'm going to keep repeating that because that's the main issue, who was a jobber a week ago. Now you're trying to make a serious threat. It hardly ever works. In fact, I don't remember it ever working, but I'll give it a shot. Now, if you're for it and you want to debate me, at the Riggs Beast on Twitter, hit me in the comments down below. I was all over this on SmackDown. I would love to debate this. I would love to hear your opinions why you think it could work, but it's got to be logic, and it's got to come from your own opinion. Do not recite to me dirt sheets, and do not recite to me what other people say. I want to know what you have to say. This channel is inclusion and debate. You tell me what you believe, not what somebody else tells you, and not what a dirt sheet tells you. SmackDown tonight, though, was a 5 out of 10. It was a decent show. Good matches. I heavily disagree with Jinder Mahal as the number one contender for the WWE Championship. Laid out as the reasons before. We can discuss it further on the platforms I gave to you. And that's going to do it for this week's SmackDown review. As always, I thank you for coming back to the Riggs Beast channel. And let's go beast on that subscribe button. Let's go beast on that like button. And as always, guys, keep it beast.